There are a lot of things that myths across the world have in common, no matter the culture. These typically include creation stories, flood myths, moral lessons, and heroic journeys. One thing that they all have in common are monsters and supernatural beings. The most common? Dragons.
Dragons.
And Slavic mythology was no exception. Dragons, or the Zmey as they're known, are no strangers to the many tales of this mythology. But how are they alike or different from the rest of the dragons? Let's find out. When you talk about dragons in Slavic mythology, people often wonder if they are different from dragons in European mythology or other myths around the world. Slavic dragons are both similar and different in interesting ways. They combine elements from various myths, but also have unique features that you don't see in European dragons, especially the ones in Western European myths and fantasy stories. Before we dive into what Slavic dragons are like, let's compare them to their Western counterparts. Western European dragons are usually depicted as massive reptilian beasts covered in tough shimmering scales that can range in a variety of colors from deep green to fiery red. They have powerful leathery wings that allow them to fly. Their muscular bodies are supported by 4 strong legs, and they often have long tails. These dragons are typically solitary and highly territorial. They normally guard their lairs, which are filled with vast hoards of treasure. These treasures include gold, jewels, and other precious items, which the dragons are said to sleep on and fiercely protect from any intruders. This role as guardians of treasures often brings them into conflict with heroes and knights who seek to defeat the dragon and claim the treasure. They are portrayed as the ultimate adversary, making them the embodiment of chaos and destruction. Now, Slavic dragons, while they are also usually seen as giant fire-breathing serpents similar to Western European dragons, have unique characteristics tied to Slavic mythology. For instance, the name for dragon in Slavic languages often translates to viper, which is a type of serpent. To really understand Slavic dragons, you have to look into the specific elements of Slavic myths and how they connect with these creatures. The serpent in Slavic mythology is very important because it is connected to the god Veles. Veles is the god of the underworld, the lowlands, and the nature around those areas. He's also the god of deception and magic, and he's the rival to another god called Perun. In Slavic mythology, there is a big cosmic battle between Perun, the god of thunder, and Veles, who is often depicted as a serpent or sometimes as, you guessed it, a dragon. Now, this cosmic battle is not necessarily your typical good versus evil narrative. While it's true that they're at war, neither Perun nor Veles is considered purely evil. They both control different elements and fight to protect or dominate these aspects, and people benefit from both gods alike. Similarly, dragons in Slavic mythology aren't seen as purely evil. In early Slavic history, the concept of evil wasn't black and white, so dragons, like the gods, had both good and bad sides. I personally think that mythologies that embrace these dualistic traits of human nature in their deities are much more relatable than current religious beliefs, where the deity is a perfect being that can do no wrong. But I digress. The connection to Veles, the trickster god, makes Slavic dragons similar to tricksters more than outright ultimate bosses that need to be defeated. But this doesn't mean that they were not powerful. They are very much like Western dragons that could breathe fire and even had multiple heads. These dragons could cause massive destruction by using different elements and forces, depending on the region. For example, some dragons could control different types of elements, not necessarily just fire. Because of their trickery, Slavic dragons and the god Veles are often compared to other gods from different mythologies who also had deceptive and magical qualities, such as Loki from Norse mythology or Hermes from Greek mythology. Slavic dragons could shapeshift, which gave them an interesting power beyond just being strong. They often used their cleverness to steal people or defeat heroes rather than using brute force. One of their main tricks was transforming into human form to kidnap or seduce women in villages. This happens in many early Slavic histories and even later ones, like the Russian tale of Dobrynya Nikitish and the Dragon. These stories were so common that people believed children born from dragons who transformed into humans and seduced women would become great heroes. This again touches the point that dragons, like the god Veles and other gods, weren't seen as purely evil. They had the potential to bring positive things because of their connection to different elements. Oftentimes, there were conflicts among dragons, and Slavic people generally didn't want to get involved in the battles of these powerful beings. People believed that if you angered one, even if you preferred it over the other, the offended one would punish you regardless. So the best idea was to just stay out of their conflicts and let the gods and dragons fight amongst themselves. There are interesting regional variations in Slavic myths. In the Balkans, for example, storms from the Mediterranean could damage villages and farms, which were crucial for early Slavs. These storms were often linked to a demon called Allah or Hala, depicted as a dark cloud or another type of dragon. In these stories, dragons or gods would protect the villages by fighting the Allah in the sky, preventing the storms from destroying farmland. These clashes in the sky kept the farmland safe and gave the Zmey a positive reputation in South Slavic folklore, which is unique compared to other regions where dragons had more of a mixed reputation. In Bulgarian folklore, there is a type of serpent called a smok that eventually transforms into a dragon after 40 years. As times changed, people through stories from Ukrainian and Russian tales among the East Slavs began to think of the Zmey in a more negative way. These stories often featured a hero called a bogatyr who fights a dragon or Zmey to save someone, usually a kidnapped person. But why did this narrative suddenly change? One word: Christianity. Many of these stories emerge after Christianity spread to the Slavic nations, changing how people viewed the Zmey. Under Christian influence, serpents and dragons were often associated with the devil, giving them a negative image. This shift made dragons appear much more negative in many stories due to the impact of Christian beliefs. These dragons could be connected to witches like the Baba Yaga, dark sorcerers like Koshchei the Deathless, or just cause destruction on their own. In Russian folklore, it's believed that a dragon guards the path to the underworld. This dragon ensures that no one enters the underworld who isn't supposed to. Similarly, in Ukrainian and Belarusian beliefs, a serpent could transform into a dragon after a certain number of years, much like in the Bulgarian folklore. Among Ukrainians, it was believed that a serpent could transform into a dragon after around 7 years, while among Belarusians, it was thought to take 100 years. In Western Slavs, the geography influenced dragons to be a mix of the Eastern and Southern Zmey and the Germanic-style dragon. This is seen in the Czech and Slovak drak and the Polish smok. Shape-shifting dragons are less common in Western Slavic myths, but there are still many dragons who combine more traditional Slavic dragon characteristics with the classical Western European dragons. For example, Smok Wawelski from Polish folklore, also known as the Wawel dragon, combines elements of a trickster and a classic fire-breathing dragon. According to the legend, Smok Wawelski terrorized the city of Krakow, devouring livestock and occasionally humans. The people lived in constant fear of the dragon, and many brave knights and warriors attempted to slay the beast, only to be defeated. This is because the dragon used cunning and intelligence to evade capture, and the way that this dragon was eventually defeated was also through cunning and intelligence, not brute force. And the remains of this dragon are allegedly still in Krakow to this very day. So if you'd like a dedicated video about the story, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me for today's tale. If you had fun or learned anything, be sure to drop a comment below. Also like, subscribe to the channel, or share this video with someone else. All of that really makes this bard happy to sing for his supper. Until the next tale, Farewell, and may the gods smile upon you.